Welcome to the Building Sheriffs. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, goodbye, whichever takes your fancy. My name is Paul Puccioni, otherwise known as Pooch, and I'm joined by Chris E.W. Jowett. Today we are going to be talking about patios, those lovely things you sit on outside, sipping your gin and tonic for those 2 or 3 lovely days per year we get of summer. First, let me introduce you to my old building mate, my old buddy, mate of over 30 years. It's Chris E.W. Jowett. How are you, Chris?
I'm fine. Yes, indeed.
Quite an intro.
Anyway, what have you been doing today? Because you accused me the other day of never asking you questions. So, what are you doing this evening when you put this, when you put this to bed?
I've had quite a day today. So my wife has just got home and she's had quite a day today. So the second, I'm in a bit of a rush and I don't want this to last too long because the second this finishes, I am down the pub, mate.
FMB, mate. Bad show. Just for the record, mate, we're not talking Federation of Master Builders. The last 2 words are me backwards.
Oh, okay. I thought you were. But
what do you have to tell me that for Christ's sake?
I thought being a good mate, you would feel for me and think that Pooch needs to go for a drink. I've been in court, mate. I've been in court. I've had a smart suit on and everything.
Because you know it's dry. The 2 viewers may know it's dry January. You're supposed to be dry. I hate being dry with a vengeance.
Yeah.
And my lovely wife has gone to a meeting in the village hall tonight, so I can sneak a drink in. Now this is ridiculous because they're not her rules that make it dry. She can give a toss whether I drink or not. But I don't want to let her know that I might sneak a bevy when we finish this because I just want one for God's sake. Anyway, how did you get on in court today, Rob? I know that you.
Hold on, Chris. You're only cheating yourself.
Grandmother.
Court today was interesting. It was over something very, very silly that's been going on for a while, and there was quite a decent sum of money involved.
Oh, did you?
And
so that advice that you were given proved to be erroneous, or you're a complete rubbish.
It was indeed from
self-defender.
No, I used the defence he gave me, but the court chose to see otherwise. But do you know what? It was a really interesting experience. We went in. The judge was about 19.
Wasn't that?
The barrister probably wasn't a day over 12, and the woman witness, she was 103 if she was a day. She was the finance director of this company I was dealing with, and the first thing that fascinated me was you give your name, and they gave all their names and everything, and the other 2 were so nervous. The barrister was nervous, I could see, and she could hardly speak. She was so nervous. I didn't give a monkeys. But what was interesting was when he said, what's your name? Paul Puccioni. What's your occupation? I said, why is that relevant? And he said, oh, it's just on the form. What's your occupation? I said, I'm a builder. And as I said that, they all looked at me. He had his head down. They were looking at them, and they looked at me. I had a nice suit on, I was smartly dressed, but what on earth does that have to do with anything? It's like in the old days when you had your passport, you had your occupation
was, or your religion or whatever.
It's crazy, isn't it? But I have to say, even though I lost Chris, I took it with good grace. And at the end of the proceedings, I suddenly announced, I said to everyone, do you know what? I really enjoyed myself.
You won't enjoy paying the £5,000 to that public school, will you?
But I did add, I said, within the confines of this absurdity, and the judge looked at me and he said, what do you mean by that? I said, have you ever read The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus? He said, no. And I looked at the boy solicitor, he hadn't, and I looked at the old lady and she hadn't, and I said, I suggest you read it. I said, are we done here? And where do I pay? So I felt like Sting out of Quadrophenia.
I read an Albert Camus once. It was called The Glass Bead Game. It's probably the most boring book I ever read in my life, and it was thick. And I read it in Afghanistan because
really,
when you're travelling, you remember this, because I travel bloody light. I have one book, and when I finished it, I swap it with the first book that comes along. You don't think, I don't care if I swap a 4-inch thick book for Jonathan Livingston Seagull, which is about 1 millimetre thick. You don't care, you just want another book. So someone gave me this, so I read it. It was a nightmare. No. Let me tell you about my one court appearance, all right? I was on the jury. I was foreman of the jury. I won't tell you anything about the case, but it was it was so obvious that the bloke was innocent. Anyway, so we got in there. I said, right. I said, I propose. I'm gonna give you a proposition. I propose that we all state this man's innocent, and I'll ask for a show of hands. So I said, I propose this man's innocent. Can I have a show of hands? All 12 of us put our hands up, and then we ordered 3 sandwiches, and it took us longer to order the sandwiches than it did to pronounce the man innocent.
No. I tell you, if they'd all agreed with Henry Fonda, that wouldn't be much of a film, would it?
Tony Hancock. Anyway, what are we doing today?
Now, we're about to talk about patios.
Sorry, mate. Carry on.
Welcome back to the Building Sheriff. Before the break, or before that silly sound that you just heard, we decided that we're going to talk about patios. And Chris and I have put many patios down, and we've seen many patios, and they range from fabulous to pig's ears or cow's arses.
Let me just tell you about the experience of laying glass patio, Chris? That I laid, okay? Which was outside my extension.
Okay.
Now, you lads,
right.
The heaviest thing you've ever used to lay a patio is an 18-inch square concrete patio slab.
I know I have done the road patios, the road slabs, which are 3 foot by 2 foot, and it's a 2-man lift. I mean, they're very heavy. I know the ones you mean. They're very, very heavy indeed. So I know about those, but I can't say that I'm in Jeff Cape's
for some
league
reason,
of world's strongest
Yorkshire
man.
Gardens, which is what I've got, just accumulate stone. We call them flags up here, flagstones, and I didn't have to. Thank God, I didn't have to bring any of these damn things in to lay this patio outside my new extension. It's about 20 foot square, and it comprises 4 or 5 inch thick solid stone flags. The biggest of which is 3.5 foot square. Now, it's not a case of 2-man lift, mate. You don't lift it. All you can do is get a bar.
No.
I've got I don't know where I got it from, a 4 foot long solid steel inch thick bar. And what you do is you slam it into the ground next to the patio and use the pivot action to shove the patio along the ground 4 inches. And that's how you get each. And I did that with every single one of them. And it was a case of, I put the biggest one in first, at the front line, and I just laid them on the soil. You know, these things don't, they don't wobble. Yeah. you just lay that. You just rake the soil relatively flat and smooth. You know, or give yourself a fall. And wherever this bloody thing stops, and because you're so knackered you can't move it anymore, that's it. And the others just go against it. Yeah. And because they're all, you know, they're not uniform, these things. Some of them have got 3-inch gaps in between. Some of them have got 1/2 inch gaps in between. You know, because you're trying to line them up. Oh Christ, what a nightmare it was, Boo.
So we're talking.
Boy, no, it looks lovely.
Category here, are we?
I mean, it's not. It's okay. In one plane, but I mean, these things are. You know, there's maybe an inch of difference relevant. You know, these things, some of them, and I filled them in because I just couldn't. I've pointed them with slate chippings, which are blue.
I thought you were going to say you pointed them with other patio stones.
I'm thinking this is a real cowboy thing to put these slate chippings in, and it looks bloody lovely. It looks really brown stuff hot, mate. It really does. Yeah. God, yeah. Anyway,
fantastic, Chris. Again, listen. I mean, I know we do on this like to go through your repertoire of stories that you're going to open with on Parky. For the punters listening, or for Norman and for my wife Jo, what about if they are thinking of they've got a bit of ground outside, bit of earth, and they're thinking of having a patio? Can you talk through the kind of process, getting a builder in, things to look out for? what they might have to do and the process of the building.
You've got to work out, first of all, what's going to go on this patio. You and the kids, or is the car going to go on it? Because it's, the only real difference is the depth of foundation. But let's assume the car's not part of the equation. First of all, you've got to, you'll be faced with a garden or a load of grass, a load of turf. So and topsoil. So if you dig in it, if you get, you don't want to spend money on a skip. Ideally, not a penny on the skip. So you dig the turf up and reach and give it to someone, or put it somewhere else in the garden. You take all the topsoil up and you lay that between your rose bushes delicately over the next couple of weeks. So you put a tarpaulin down, put all this on.
Yep.
You've got to go down about 8 inches, I'd say, 200 mil altogether. Now, there might be an existing path there, or maybe an existing patio. It might not be impossible to lay your new patio straight on top of that, providing it's solid, it's not cracked, and it's big enough, and the level against the house is okay. It'll have to be quite a long way down below the DPC to be able to put a new patio on top and still leave yourself the not mandatory, but the 3 courses below the DPC.
Yeah, and at this point, when you are going through those little scenarios, what we must stress is there is a perfect way to do it, but not everybody has the money. So as you suggested there, you may well only have the money to get a guy in to come and lay a patio on top of the patio you've got. And if that's what you want, that's absolutely fine. Let's not get into accusing anyone of being cowboys here, or I know we get people writing in saying, oh, you shouldn't do it like that. We know how to do it, but you are talking about different scenarios, and bear in mind that everything Chris says,
but if you do end up with your patio a little bit too high relevant to your damp-proof course, you can put a French drain in, which, by the way, is not
French drain,
sort of a cure for Napoleonic syphilis. It's it's a means of removing water that otherwise would lie against the house and infiltrate through. So we won't describe a French drain, except the builder will know what it is. Oh, go on then.
Well, I'll describe it really quickly. Right. It's a trench that's got loads of big stones
ideally,
in it.
Yeah.
And water drains down
ideally, the water drains to a level surface, way below the surface, and it's taken somewhere else. But that's the ultimate French drain. But, yeah.
Do you know, I find it hard to, when I'm wallpapering, I find it hard to not think about Napoleon.
Yes, of course, because he died of arsenic poisoning, which was part of the paste that stuck his wallpaper onto his bedroom.
Yeah, exactly.
In St. Helena.
Was it?
Now, I bet you didn't know
Helena,
that I knew that, Pooch, did you?
No, I would have thought you did know it. And the point of addressing that was that I wonder how much time you and I have spent getting rid of old paint that had lead in it. And it's interesting, right, isn't it? All of these things, one time they had arsenic in it, and all the paint had lead in it. And I always think now that even though we have this water-based paint that's not quite as good as it was, blah, 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 at least it's blooming safe.
Yeah, at least our kids, lead doesn't affect the adult brain, I do believe, but
not as much.
The developing brain, it's, get rid of it, mate.
And the good thing is that we know that you haven't got any problems with lead, because I hear you have no lead in your pencil anyway.
Yes, mate, that is the case. I am the archetypal Jaffa.
Was that the pewter tankard or the operation, or both?
That was the operation, mate. Yes. In fact, I had to have the operation because I was taking too much of the natural lead resources of the planet in my pencil originally.
Right. It's a family show,
yes, indeed,
so
yes.
I don't really think
you
we go into
started
that. It, Chris. I did start it. Yes. No, I didn't.
You did. You invaded Poland.
No, I didn't. Sudetenland, actually, wasn't it? Should have been, but you I'm in that kind of mood. I've been in court, and it's a bit, So you've got some builders in, and let's say that you have grass there and you're going to put a new patio down. Now, it's quite a process, isn't it? And don't expect your lawn to be looking good for the rest of the summer.
No. Even the bit that they're not supposed to go on, they will go on. Of course, they've got to walk round it. Yeah, it's a messy job. But, just think for the future. Think of those G&Ts as Pooch mentioned earlier. And if you put it in the right place, you've got yourself a sun trap, but you've got to think about shade. I didn't think about shade. Right, I didn't think about shade because my garden was a forest, and I just cleared the whole damn thing so I could see the best view in Yorkshire. And there's not a bit of shade in my garden. I should have thought about that, Pooch.
So you're digging down 8 inches. You're putting your hardcore down. Can you explain this kind of process in layman's terms to our viewers, please?
Well, let's assume the hardcore is an old patio, okay? Which you think, Christ, I can't lay anything on top of that. It's too cracked or whatever. So you pick that up. You have it picked up, and you put it on a tarpaulin on top of your on top of your lawn. You dig down, sprinkle all your topsoil around your roses. You've got a big old excavation there. You take that broken path. And it's laid into the bottom of the excavation, and it's broken up so it's the size of eggs. Or if McAdam was building it, he'd say each stone had to be able to be put into his mouth. That was the regulation when he first started laying his roads. Just because the blokes who were laying it, they needed to be told that stone won't do. Yeah, anyway. And you'll probably have to get hold of some more hardcore, which you try not to do because it's expensive. It has to be brought in, it has to be buried in, whatever. Anyway, so you've laid your hardcore, and if you really want to do it well, you can get yourself a vibrating, the builder can vibrate it down with a vibrating plate, which compacts it even more. And when it's exactly to the right height, you then start laying your slabs on something. On top of this hardcore. Yes. And if you want a really good job, you lay them on dabs of mortar, or a good job is just get some sand, soft sand will do, builder's sand, or sharp sand, a couple of inches of that, and you just lay the slabs on that.
I would shy away from that if you're going to be living there for a long time. I don't think that's as an effective job. I understand the price implications, but once you've put your hardcore down, you've probably taken delivery of a ton bag of scalpings and levelled those out and got your vibrating plate on it. Then it is a case of a shallow dot and dab putting your slabs down, isn't it? The reason I say shallow is we're coming on to pointing, which I'm sure everyone knows about. Everyone knows grouting and pointing nowadays. But if the builder hasn't got his height right and he's too low, he will be tempted to put massive great dollops of cement on there and then just rest his slabs on top so that he's at the right height. What you then have is massive great crevasses where the pointing should go between your slabs. And what's going to happen is he'll get some sand and cement mix, dry mix mortar, and brush that in, and it will stick at the top, but in time that will drop out and you're going to have a problem there.
Keep filling it every year. So you want to keep it. Ideally, you want you're not going to 3/4 of an inch. Once the slab has been pressed on top of the dabs of mortar, that mortar goes down to about 3/4 of an inch maximum.
That's really good advice. It's nice to have a figure and a size as opposed to just a gauge. And I think even if you keep reiterating that to yourself when you're doing it, then you know that you're making life easy for yourself as a builder.
And
because
the pointing
then becomes easier.
I've used you can spend ages with a dry wet mix, if you see what I mean. Not too wet because it goes all over the bloody place and you never clean it up. Or ideally, you get some play pit sand, which is bone dry. On a dry day, you get play pit sand and mix it 3-to-1 with cement powder, and then just give it a good mix to brush it in so it completely fills all the gaps. And then you take a hose pipe and play it on a fine mist all over it. And you want to set it. You don't want to.
That's the best.
Don't put it on mains pressure and point it at the pointing because it'll just send it straight out all over the slabs, and then you've got a problem because it's now wet and it's going to stain. So you've got to keep it as dry as possible and just put enough water on to set it, and then let Jesus do the rest next time it rains.
Well, there's also now, have you used the jointing compound that you get? It comes in a tub and it's vacuum sealed. and you stick your knife into it, and it all oozes out like very fine beige tarmac. But really, it's like sand, and you brush this in. It's not cheap, and it goes off itself, Chris. You brush it in. It's like brushing silver sand in, but slightly thicker, and it just goes into the joints, and then it's done. And then overnight,
no, I've never heard
if
of
it rains,
I've never heard of it.
It goes rock hard. It's great stuff. Because one of the things, I did a little bit of research now, Chris, so I've got a fact and a figure. When you leave a gap in the pointing, water will accumulate. When that water freezes, it will expand, and we've all seen ice cubes will expand and their volume will become larger. I thought I'll look up to see what kind of pressure expansion force water has when it does expand. If water is in a container that has no give, no budge whatsoever, as it freezes, it expands with a pressure of 30,000
Christ
pounds per square inch.
almighty!
It's unbelievable. I know. Hence all the viewers, I'm sure you know that potholes are caused by water thawing, freezing, expanding. Again, thermodynamics, and that causes water gets underneath the tarmac, it freezes, it expands, that causes the tarmac to pop. So it's really important that you get this done right, because otherwise your mortar's going to be popping out all over the place.
Can I think of a better one? I don't think so.
Well, it's the only fact, so it's fact of the day. It's official. I think that looking at the patio job, again, are you going for a general builder, or are you looking for a specialist patio company? Are there
specialist patio
What would your
companies?
advice be?
Are there blokes who lay?
Oh, there
are.
are.
I mean, yeah.
There are.
Yeah.
Fancy websites.
I just go for a general builder, but as long as he's done a few patios and his name's Bert and he's 50, he knows how to do it, and he'll probably charge a lot less. Because these other companies, they tend to be called aardvark patios, so they get at the front of the yellow pages, and they turn up mob-handed in very, very new vans. You think, Christ, who's paying for this? Oh yeah, I am. So it's all about the price, really, on this.
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, ultimately, your end game is loads of patio slabs on the floor that never move, and you don't get weeds growing in between the mortar. So if you can get a recommendation on this, probably as much as any job, really, and go and see a neighbour's patio that's been down for 2 or 3 years, if it still looks good, then they've done a good job. It's the test of time, isn't it, with this? Right, Chris, I think that's enough on patios, because I'm rather looking forward
I thought you were going to say,
today.
I'm rather looking forward to going to the pub.
Welcome back to the Building Sheriff, www.buildingsheriff.com. We are the UK's original, foremost and leading price guide to jobs around your house. Please visit our website. We've done this for nothing. We're both builders of 30 odd years apiece, and the information is there to help you save a few quid.
On, mate.
Now, questions, Chris. Unfortunately, there are none, because I'm going down the pub. See you later.
That'll do, mate.
No, if we must, here we go. Okay, so on email, Harry from Lincoln asks, we mentioned grout earlier. My grout is discoloured on my bathroom floor. Is this easy to rake out and redo?
No, it's not, Harry. It's not. No, mate, it's not. If it was easy to rake out, it would have come out already. So I assume you've got yourself a solid bathroom floor. And the grout's discoloured. Discoloured because it's mouldy. Stick some bleach on it, mate, and hopefully that'll do the job.
A tip here is it's discoloured because it's either mouldy, or the tiler has for some reason, or Harry himself has for some reason used white grout on a floor. Never use white grout on a floor, because it will discolour in patches within the first 5 minutes. Within the first week it's going to look ugly, and then within a month it will all be a mouldy shade of grey, as Chris said. Every time you use a floor, use a minimum shade of light grey.
Yep, indeed. I bought some today, Pooch.
Did you?
Yeah, because the bathroom in the barn, this is the second time I've done it, I used green oak. There were 9x3 beams. That's big. And to those beams, I screwed down interlocking green waterproof chipboard, only in the bathroom, and then I tiled on that. And because the beams have moved, because they were green and now they're not, they've moved. I 4 years ago, I took the whole damn floor up and relaid it, and the bastards have done it again. Now we're selling the house.
Oh man!
So all I've done now is rake out the loose mortar, the loose grout, because in my case, whatever that bloke was called, it's come out. Harry, it's come out, and I've had to spend. I only want a cupful, and I've spent 13 quid today on a bag of grey grout, which I'll throw 3/4 of it away. So I feel for you, mate.
Right, Chris, time to move on to Twitter. What's trending on Twitter? I know you always love this bit.
I do.
Well, I found this is quite interesting. January the 17th, apparently, is officially Museum Selfie Day. You might ask, what the heck is Museum Selfie Day? Well, if you go onto this Twitter timeline, you will see people standing in front of the Mona Lisa, doing a pose and doing a selfie, standing in front of a Gainsborough, standing in front of a Turner, standing in front of a Rodin, doing a thinker pose. So it's Museum Selfie Day.
Well, it should be, from what your description, it should be art gallery or selfie day. But you know, we'll pass on the finesse, mate. Right. Well, who decides? Who decides what day it is today regarding trending?
I know. And I was thinking, who decides it's official?
Who gives a shit for a start?
Yes, exactly. Well, probably more than the second story that's trending, which is Kylie Jenner gets her crib.
Really? Does she now?
Yes. So this is one of the Kardashian girls who's pregnant, and a crib for her baby, which, what do we call it over here? A cot for her baby, was pictured being unloaded from a van in her fancy house going into a house. That's massive news, apparently.
Well, I'll tell you what, anybody out there who actually thought that was even remotely uninteresting, let alone interesting, you're sad. You are very sad indeed.
Yes.
Anyone who even gave that article a sideways glance is sad. These people. I mean, probably this woman didn't intend for the world to know about her crib. You know, so it probably isn't she did.
No, she did.
Of course she did.
On Twitter, @ActionAuger via Twitter says, my old sash windows rattle a lot when it's windy, and it's been really windy recently. Is there a simple or easy cure for this?
There is, actually. You go to the DIY shop, you get some sellotape draft excluder, which comes on a roll. It's about 1/4 inch thick, and it's sticky. And it's about, 12 mil wide. 12 mil wide, maybe 6 mil deep. It's got a backing strip on it. You put your window up. You raise the sash, the offending sash. You stick this on the back of the parting bead. Just try it on one. Don't go mad. And do it so just on the parting bead's a bit between the two sash windows. It's a bit of bead that parts them, that separates them. Put it on one. Put a strip of that on each side, and then put your window up and down, and hopefully that'll do it. If it doesn't do it, then you've got to put one on the inside face of the staff bead, and the staff bead is the one that's on the very outside of the window, the inside, your side. It's got a tiny little rebate on. That's one way of sorting it out. Or you could just, if you don't open them, just screw the two sashes together. All right, there'll be a gap, but they won't rattle.
Well, actually, Chris, you say that because our windows, what I did was I got an old window lock, and you know the window locks with the square key at the end? So
a tube.
I screwed through. A tube. I screwed through the first sash, and then my window lock screws into the sash behind, so I can have them open, and I'll screw in, and I can have them anywhere I want, and I screw that, and it stops them rattling. But prior to that, @ActionAuger, I either used to use a couple of little wedges. You can get them from any DIY shop, or just a bit of newspaper wedged in there, and that'll
stop them rattling. But the reason they're rattling is air getting past them. My way was try to stop the air getting past, which is the far better way of doing it, of course. Because sash windows are drafty as hell.
Moving on to Facebook, Chris. we got a Claire with an I, Claire in Hastings on Facebook, asks, here we go. This is one for Chris. You say you're a teacher. How long were you a teacher and what made you get into building? Did you need any qualifications?
That's a very good question, young Claire. I taught for 5 years in a junior school, I won't mention it, in Anslow, and I enjoyed every single minute of it. It was lovely. But then I realised, because I'm not ambitious, so I realised that the first thing that made me consider my position was the fact I was taught in a junior school. And in a junior school, you just give them carte blanche. As long as you went through the curriculum and no one really checked, you could do what you wanted all day long. And so in the afternoons, you do some fun thing or whatever. And I ended up doing this. I found myself doing the same thing as I'd done 5 years ago. And I could see this was the thin end of the wedge. And I could also see myself, because I had no ambition to be a head or whatever, I'd become a horrible old goat who no one could do anything with my own chair in the staff room, my own cup, my own way of doing things, and I would have been unapproachable if I'd still been in that school now, because I would have been, and I'd have been this age. I'd have been your kid's worst nightmare. So I decided to get out. Yeah, and the qualifications I had were, because I was a teacher, I had no money at all. Now, I'd worked on buildings for 10 years, during my formative teens or whatever, a bit less than that. I used to drive diggers at one point. And then I bought a house a year beforehand, and I'd rewired it by myself. I'd replumbed it by myself. And in those days, you used copper, and you bent the pipes with a spring in them over your knee. You soon learn about tensions and forces. And I put new floors in. I plastered. I'd spent a year doing this house up because I loved doing it. So I regarded myself as reasonably well qualified. No paper qualifications, but you ask a lot of builders and ask them truthfully what paper qualifications they got, and they'll look at you blank. And I just took on jobs initially that essentially I knew I could do. Yeah, but one day I was a teacher and the next I was a builder.
Now, the most amazing thing about that story, Chris, is you were able to buy a house in your 20s as a teacher on a teacher's salary. Can you imagine that nowadays?
Well, we struggled, and we bought it because my wife's father was dead, so he left her £5,000, and the house was £15,000. So we had a £10,000 mortgage, all right. And I believe, if I remember correctly, the monthly payments were £75. And I can remember my ex-wife, who you know well, on one occasion crying. Yep. We were both teachers, crying because she didn't know how we were going to make those mortgage payments. £75 a month.
That $5,000 that you got left, it'd be the equivalent of a kid nowadays wanting to buy, let's say it's a 300 or 400 grand house, being left 150 grand. 150 grand.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Claire, that's why Chris is no longer teaching, and I think it was probably a good move, because knowing him as long as I have done, I think we've had a few laughs together building, haven't we, Chris?
Yeah. And we still are.
Well, that's another episode of our meanderings today on Patio. So time for me to... Oh, I've forgotten. Oh, Chris, I forgot.
What have you forgotten, Pooch?
I'm just about to go down the pub. I'd forgotten. Now I'm really happy.
You'd forgotten you were going down the pub?
No, I haven't, and I'm off. So good night, everyone. I'm off. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bitterly. Bye-bye. I'm having a bloody drink. You and your pub.
Do it, mate.
Sooty, always in mischief, Sooty. Always the beachy troubles, always brewing. But really, we must be fair. He's the cutest, sweetest, lovable teddy bear.
Okay, Sooty, take it away on the xylophone. Ladies and gentlemen, Sooty.